All right, so today we're doing a quick review of throwing on the potter's wheel. When you cut off your clay, how much clay have I told you in the past you should start with? A fist size. I'm going to tell you in Ceramics 2, I want you to start with slightly more than a fist size amount of clay. The next thing I'm going to tell you in Ceramics 2 is that you do not have to put the clay into a ball. You can slice it right off the pug, as long as the pug that you are slicing does not have a hole in the middle. Some of the recycled clay will have a hole in the middle because of the way it was pugged out, so you will have to wedge that clay before you put it on the wheel and put it into a ball. This clay does not have a hole in the middle. I've cut off an amount that is slightly bigger than my fist. What do I need to do to put it on the wheel head? I'm going to smack it down. I'm going to try to eyeball center. Smack it down. Now that is not going to stick. That's going to move. Now that's going to stick to the wheel head. So I want to make sure it is smacked down 3 or 4 times. You do not want to flatten this completely, right? We're not wanting it to look like a pancake. What's the next step? Yep, I want to get the clay wet. I want to get my hands wet. What's next? All right, does anybody remember the hand positioning? It is high. Yeah. Your left hand is the power hand. This is the hand that you're going to be pushing the clay into the center. Your right hand sits on top of it almost like an X. The right hand is going to be guiding it to cone it up and flattening it down. The left hand is the hand that centers the clay. Also, please remember that your elbows should be into your body. Should not have chicken elbows. They should not go out like this. You have to use your core to center your energy and focus your eyes in the center. Don't be looking around at everybody in the classroom. You have to look down at your clay. Tuck your elbows in. Does anybody remember why I throw with a sponge in my hand? As I'm throwing, if I feel the clay dry out, I can just squeeze a little bit and there's extra water. When you're throwing, the wheel should be going around into your left hand. You know it's going the right direction when it's going around into your left hand. When you are centering, the wheel should be going full speed. Is my clay centered? Not even close. So the left hand, you see, look at my elbow of my left hand. Do you see how it's wedged into my body? All right, so I let it come up. What is this called? This is called coning. Now I have to bring it back down. Am I really pressing hard? Yes. I am pressing very hard with my left hand and very hard down with my right hand. I know it looks very easy for me, but I am using a lot of pressure. I'm going to bring it up again. Pressing in with my left hand, hard. My right hand is just guiding. My right hand now is pressing very hard. And if you watch me, I have to get right up on top of it and use my whole body to press down. Is this clay centered? How do you know? My hands are not moving at all. Now let's stop and take a look at it. This bottom 1/16 of an inch down here is not centered. Why not? Does anybody remember? When you are centering on the wheel, you do not want to press your hand all the way against the bat. The bat is rough and there's a lot of grog in your clay. If you press it all the way down, you're going to tear up your hand. You're going to skin it. I've actually had kids show me their bloody hands before. Do not press Do not press your hand down against the bat. You should be pressing your hand in. Just let that last little bit of clay slide underneath of your hand. Don't worry about centering it. All right, so my clay is centered. I have a nice wide base. What's the next step? Yep, I have to actually open the piece. You can use your index finger, your middle finger, your thumb. I prefer my middle finger. Notice I'm using my middle finger, and I'm also pressing with the index finger of my other hand, and I want to try to stay as much in the center as possible. I want to go down deep enough, but not too deep. At this point, it's a guess. You have to eyeball it. What's the next step? Yes, good. I see people doing exactly the right thing. I'm going to press it in and I'm going to widen it. However, I'm not going to use one finger straight. I'm going to start with one finger and I'm going to pull with my finger bent like this. When it's big enough, I'm going to get 2 fingers in there and start pulling. You need to have your fingers bent. If your finger is straight, you'll end up with a pointed bottom. This is called a missile pot. Does anybody know why they're called missile pots? Because they're guaranteed to explode. So I'm bending my fingers as I am pulling. And widening my piece. Now, if you look down in the center, what do you see? What do you see down in the center? Anybody? You see the swirls? We all know what that's from, right? It's from my fingernails, because I have long fingernails. So you have to smooth that out. Now you have to get rid of your ridges, but there's another reason for pressing and firming up the clay. Do you remember what it is? If there's any air bubbles, there shouldn't be any. But what we want to do is compress the clay down towards the bat, down towards the bottom. Compressing the clay will prevent it from cracking. Okay, all I'm doing right now is pressing with my middle finger. All I'm doing is pressing with my middle finger and moving it back and forth along the bottom of the pot to smooth it out. Now, if you have a wide enough pot, like this one, you can also use your wooden angle tool to firm up the base. So I'm going to use my wooden angle tool, and I am laying it flat and pressing. Now I'm firming it up, making it nice and straight. I'm going to get rid of that clay on the side. Well, that's a great question. How do I know how thick it is? I know from experience the way it looks, but if you don't know, you need a needle tool. Does anybody see a needle tool? So, how thick, how deep is the bottom? Take your needle tool, press it straight down in, put your finger right there, and pull it up. So I know that's exactly how deep the bottom of my piece is. So that's a good amount. Now I have to remember that for when I'm trimming tomorrow, that I know I have that much clay left at the bottom. So I have that hole. In order to get rid of that hole, I just need to firm it up. So I'm going to just do exactly what I was doing. Pressing with my middle finger and running over the base a couple more times. Alright, so now I have a pretty nice looking pot to begin with. I have a nice firm flat base. What is my next step? I need to bring up the sides, right? Give it a little bit of height. Now, some potters like to use their fingertips on the inside and outside. You can try that method using your thumbs as a hinge in the middle. The other way to do it is to use your knuckle on the outside and your fingers on the inside. You are squeezing together very lightly, and pulling up at the exact same time. Did anybody have the experience where they ripped the top half of their piece off? Yes, I see heads nodding. As you are moving up towards the top of your piece, you need to let go. You need to relax. It is more fragile at the very top, at the lip. So as you are moving up, you're gradually letting off the pressure. So you can see my bowl got taller and slightly wider. Because I have clay here, I am pulling out, I'm pulling up and slightly out. I don't want to pull straight out. The centripetal force, or the force of the motion, is pushing the clay out. So if you pull it out, it's going to get really wide and really flat really fast. So you want to pull mostly up and just slightly out. I'm going to pull it at least one more time. When you're doing this, you want to set your hands right between 4 and 5 o'clock. Write that in your notes, 4 and 5 o'clock. Students get to this point and they don't know where to put their hands. They think they should put them up here, over here, over here. It should be right here, kind of at the corner, between 4 and 5 o'clock. Alright, one thing that you might notice that I do is firm up the lip every time I pull it, making like a pinching motion with my index finger and my thumb, and I am just resting either my index finger or my middle finger right on the lip. I'm not squeezing. I'm barely just setting them there, and that is flattening off the clay on the lip and making it nice and firm. Alright, I have a little bit of water left in the bottom. What do I need to do with that? I need to get rid of it. What will happen if I don't get rid of my water? It will crack. You're more likely to get an S crack. So you want to get rid of those, get rid of the moisture. Alright, so I'm happy with my bowl. I'm happy with how wide and how tall it is. The next thing I need to do is I need to use my wooden angle tool and trim away that extra little bit of clay. Remember the clay that we said we don't need to worry about centering? We got to get rid of that. So I'm going to use my wooden angle tool and I'm going to hang on tight with 2 hands. If you use just one hand, it's going to jerk it out of your grasp. So you have to use 2 hands. I am not starting at all the way at the bottom. I'm starting up about 1/2 inch. And I'm peeling down the clay. Now I have to get rid of this clay that's left on the bottom. So I have gotten rid of the extra clay on the bottom. I got rid of all of the moisture in the middle. What's the last thing? Got to cut it off. So I want my wire tool. I want to make sure that my wire is tight, and I'm pressing with my thumbs down to the wheel head, and I'm going to pull it towards me. I want to do that one more time. Clean off my wire tool. And pull it towards me. I want to leave my piece on the bat. I'm going to take my bat up. If it's hard to get up, if you can't quite do it, you can stick the wooden angle tool underneath of it to help pry it up. Now this piece I'm going to put on the shelf to dry. What do I need to do to it though so that tomorrow I am able to trim it? Yeah, you want to put a bag over it, but you want to rip a hole in the bottom of the bag and set it over it, almost like a tube. You might want to set this aside and clean up your area and then bag it, just so it has a little bit of time for the surface to dry up so that you don't get bag marks all over it. Any questions? Okay.